Welcome back, everybody. This is Rex Robichaux from Virginia DEQ, GIS Administrator here to help you become familiarized with our environmental data mapping mapper utility. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the Watershed Summary report, which is a new tool that we've never really offered before, and we're excited to bring to the public use. As you can probably imagine, the Watershed Summary report is designed to allow you to very quickly and easily obtain information for all sorts of various watershed and hydrologic style information or hydrology based information for any given location within Virginia. So with that said, the tool can be found in the upper right of the EDM. It's up here. It's actually the second from the very far right. And when you highlight over it, you'll see Watershed Summary. You don't really need to have any layers turned on or anything for this tool to work. So I'm going to click it. Once it loads, you'll see a few things that you'll become familiarized with. So AOI, or area of interest, across the top is asking you to define your location. Now, location can be a place name, so you can search for an address just like you would search up here in the upper left. So if I were entering an address, it could find it. If you have latitude and longitude coordinates, you can also enter those in as well. If you happen just to know the location, or you say you zoom into the map and you just know the spot of interest, you can drop a pin. If it's not necessarily a single point location, but it's like a line, maybe some sort of area like a polygon, you can draw that in as well. And it's going to return you all the possible watersheds that a line or a large polygon might impact. So if you draw a large polygon, say you're drawing a polygon or the size of a county or something like that, you're going to pick up and will return the watershed information for all the watersheds that polygon touches. So for this example, we'll just use a point. That's probably the most common type, and we'll just kind of drop a pin and work with that. But you also have the ability to upload a shapefile. So if you work in GIS and you're familiar with shapefiles, say you have a point shapefile or something like that, you can upload it here. Similar with line or polygon, just make sure it's a zip shapefile. It's compressed. It contains all the required shapefile file extensions within that zip folder. And last but not least, again, if you have coordinates, you can do kind of like bearing distances here. So you can input multiple bearings to draw your legal, either a legal track boundary or something like that. But again, for simplicity's sake, we'll just do the good old drop a pin. So I'm just going to do a random example here. I'm going to drop a pin up here to the north of Lynchburg. And we see here it's dropped the marker, but nothing's really happened yet. And that's because it's wanting me to tell it whether or not there's going to be a buffer distance. So this does support buffering for points, lines, or polygons. For this example, I'm just going to leave it alone, but if you want to, you could set a mile buffer out. And again, just like for an area, it will return you all possible watershed information for that entire buffer area, not just the point anymore, but that whole area created by the buffer that you've created. So again, I'll leave this blank, but again, I could enter in miles, and again, you can change the buffer units of conversion to kilometers, feet, or meters. But again, I'm going to leave this at 0, and once I want to see my results, and I'll zoom in here a little bit so we can see this area a little bit better, kind of to the northwest of Amherst. I'm going to hit report. What it's done is it's actually reached out to these layers that are available within the EDM, and it's intersected that point against all those qualifying layers. So we see that it's got hits for all of these. Sometimes that won't be the case. Sometimes you may drop a point in an area that might show up as something that says 0. If it says 0, there is not a qualifying record for that location you picked. You'll see that a lot of times with things like maybe implementation watersheds or something like that, or non-Chesapeake TMDL watersheds, for example. But this one, we got a good hit for just about everything. So we can see the return information by expanding these. So we can see that it's within the James River, major river basin. Chesapeake Bay watershed, yes or no? This is a yes or no thing. So if you see 1, that means yes, it is within the Chesapeake Bay watershed. If it's not, you should see 0. Huck 8, we can see here that the Huck 8 name is the Middle James Buffalo watershed. Huck 10, Upper Buffalo River. So we kind of drill down further into the Huck 12 level. We can see here the Stonewall Creek Buffalo River, so it's becoming a little bit more granular as we start to narrow down. It is within an implementation watershed. We can see here that the Buffalo River is an implementation watershed, and we can get that information about that implementation watershed here. It's also in a non-Chesapeake Bay TMDL watershed. And you get, again, just like the implementation watershed, we can see the info here. And last but not least, Chesapeake Bay TMDL, yes, as well. And this one actually has 3 qualifying records. So as we often see with like Chesapeake Bay type stuff, you get things that are oftentimes stacked. So that's a nice way to preview it. You can see that information quickly here as we just did. But let's say we want to see more of it. You have a few options here. You can change your units. I'm just going to leave those as acres and miles by default. And I'm going to go hit this print icon. And it's going to open up a new tab, and it's actually creating a map as well to embed within this nice printout summary. Once this finishes, we'll take a look at it. So there's the map, and there's the location that I picked, and kind of like in our print widget, it creates a pretty similar looking basic print with scale bar, scale, things like that, a little legend. If you wanted to add comments in here, you could type in additional comments. Just leave that blank. The summary actually looks pretty similar to what we just looked at, but then as you get down here, you actually see all of those things broken out. So this is a nice way to see everything all at once, whereas before we were kind of like clicking through and reading the layers. Here's all the information. So here's our major river basin, Chesapeake Bay watershed, yes, Huck 8, 10, and 12 information, implementation watershed info, our TMDL watershed information, our Chesapeake Bay TMDL watershed information. And again, what you're seeing here is all the attribution. That's why you see more, because there's more attribution in our implementation watersheds than there is, for example, in like our Huck 8 or Huck 10 layers. So that's why we see all that info. So this was really developed to meet the need that we had heard from the public of, hey, it'd be really nice if I could just quickly figure out all the related watershed information that's relevant for my address or for a location of interest. And we feel that this tool does a pretty good job of that. Obviously, we're always wanting feedback, especially with things that are new like this. So if you have any feedback, if you feel this is a great tool, if you feel it could use some improvement or there's some enhancements we can make to it, we want to hear all that. So please provide us some feedback. Otherwise, I hope that this was a valuable tutorial and it's useful and that you get a lot of good use out of this watershed summary tool. And we'll see you back next time. We're going to take a look at our swipe tool, which is finally the last tool we're going to look at. And it's very useful for comparing and doing some visual change detection between like aerial imagery layers and things like that. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.